So what I wanted to talk to you about today in today's video is using the sidechaining function in Ableton. Three good effects that have the sidechain function are the compressor, the gate, and the auto filter. So by sidechaining I mean you can affect how that particular device works by giving it an input from another channel. The most obvious example of this is using a sidechain compressor on a bass line to get rid of the bass line when the kick kicks in. I'm not going to cover that today because that's well overdone, but I want to show you some interesting things on how to get some cool gating kind of effects and that kind of thing. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to load up just an analog or any synth, and I'm just going to make a simple pad. So I'm going to insert a MIDI clip. I'm going to draw in some notes to make a G minor. So G minor is my favorite chord. Let's make it a G minor 9. That's my favorite chord ever, by the way, just so you know. That's the chord there. Let's go into the amplitude, bring the release down, sustain up, as I usually do, so that the note is completely sustained throughout the whole period. Let's give it another oscillator, detune them slightly. And I'm going to give it a reverb just to make it a big lush kind of pad sound. Let's give it another G on the bass just to give it a bit of a low end, make it all nice. I'm just going to put a limiter over it. Very nice. So there's our pad sound, but now let's add in a new MIDI track. Let's call this kick. Load in a simpler, and let's find a kick drum. So just as always, search for kick in my sample library until it's scanned, and I'm just going to drag down and I don't know, pick one that suits. It's a loop. That one. So if I drag that down into my sample, let's add in a MIDI clip here, and let's put in some notes for the kick. I'm going to mute the pad for a second. So I'm going to put in quite a few kicks because I want to use the actual kicks to do the sidechaining. So that'll do us there, and just loop that out and turn on the loop points. So here's our pad as well. So you can hear the pad really dominates. Bring this level down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a compressor into the pad channel. Might as well call that pads just so I don't get confused. And here's my compressor. Double click it. And there we go. Now if I click on this arrow here, it's going to open up the sidechaining function. So this area is, you can take an input, or take the output of something, feed it into this, and this will affect how this actually works. So I'm going to turn the sidechaining on. I'm going to say the audio from kick. You can see now the threshold gets a level on it when the kick plays. If we click on the little headphone button, it'll just play the, on here. It'll play you what the sidechain's actually hearing. Now if we want, say if we've got an actual drum loop which has more than a kick, it's got a kick, snare, hi-hats, and it's not separated out, it's all in one channel, it's a mixed down wave file or something, you can actually go into here and you can turn on an EQ, and you can turn it into a high pass, so it'll only pick up the sub-frequencies of whatever loop you're playing. It's a really good way to kind of isolate a particular sound, but because our kick channel is just a plain kick channel, we don't need that. So if we listen to this pads again with the kick, turn the headphones on. Now if I bring the threshold down, you see it's going to compress it each time the kick hits. It's all good. Most people are familiar with this sound, but when it gets interesting is chucking a gate after it. A gate, of course, it only lets through sound which is over a particular volume level. So by putting the gate after the compressor, when it compresses the sound, it's actually going to kill it completely. So if with the gate right down, and as we bring it up, we'll find that sweet spot. it's good. This is a good fun time to actually play with the release time and the ratio of the compressor, which determines how long it takes to come back after it's been compressed and how much it actually gets compressed by, to try and get it rhythmically going along with the rhythm of your tune. Just to give it a bit more to work with, I'm going to introduce a snare track. Again, put in a simpler, sorry. Go into my sample library and search for snare. So here's a list of snare drums. Again, we just pick one. Doesn't have to be. Find something a bit more punchy. That'll do. And I'm just going to insert a MIDI clip here, short one. Put a snare hit. Yeah. So you can hear the pad's kind of lagging. So if we muck with the release and the ratio, we can actually get that kind of gating effect on the pad. Turn the metronome on. Let's get rid of this. You can hear how that's in time. Let's go in here and just change a few notes to make it a bit more interesting. So that's one thing that we can do. We could also you can also use the gate with the sidechaining function. So as an example, let's send the pads to send A down here, and I've just soloed the pad channel, the return channel. And let's load in a gate. And what we can do is we can turn down the sidechain here. We can say sidechain, take the input from the snare. So every time the snare hits, then it's going to give the threshold a level here. So see how that works. What we could do is we could put a simple delay on this, link them together, have it set on 2, put the dry wet at 100 and leave the feedback at 0. So it'll delay it by half a bar, half a beat. If we put this back in. And I don't know, let's say we could put, this is a little trick I usually like to do, put a filter delay, turn the middle one off, turn the sync off on both of them and drag one of them down. So you can hear that extra pad which is coming through the send, which is getting gated by the snare drum, and then delay by the simple delay is going to be spatially widened by having a filter delay with the time set on really, really short increments. Very cool. Let's put a reverb on that and turn this one off. Turn the reverb quite up. And we could put an auto filter on here. Now, just like the others, we have our little sidechain button here. We can turn it on, turn sidechaining on, take the audio from, let's just use the kick. And now if we bring the envelope amount up, which is we've got an attack and a release envelope, which is how much of the this knob here tells us how much of that envelope we want to apply to the actual cutoff point of our filter. So we can bring that up, and it's coming from the kick. So every time the kick hits, this is actually going up and down. Let's bring a bigger delay time. If I bring the resonance right up, you'll be able to hear that envelope. Let's put a little bit of LFO on it to make it really move around. You could use a bandpass. So good. Let's add in one more quick synth line here. We'll call this bass. Put in an analog one more time, and let's just make one big long note. Put it down on the bass. Just putting in big long notes here. And of course we have to go in here, go into the amplitude and bring the release time down and sustain up. Add another oscillator, make it a sine, just give it a big bass. Screw it, let's just put in an EQA, bring the bass up. Very simple. So let's put a compressor over this. I'm just doing this to give you one more example. Compressor sidechain. Now this is the classic one. Take the sidechain from the bass, bring the threshold down. And let's put an auto filter over it. Bring it down. Let's bring the sidechain in from the snare. And so every time the snare hits, bring the gain up if you want to do it more. So there you go, a lot of fun ways to route things all over the place. Of course you can just keep going until you've got one giant set which constantly talks to itself, which is great. You can get really deep, but you can actually overdo it quite a lot with compression, on the compression side of things, but I personally like a really overly compressed sidechain kind of sound. Yeah, that's today's video. I hope you got something from that. Enjoy, tomcosm.com.